I'm Ashton Addison from EventChain for Investmentpitch Media and FinTech News Network. And today on Blockchain Interviews, we have Russell Cann, the Chief Customer Success Officer of Core Scientific. Russell, welcome to the show, and thanks so much for being here today.
I appreciate you having us. Look forward to talking to you today.
Likewise, I'm really excited to dive into the world of cryptocurrency mining. First of all, if we could just kick it off with some background on what exactly does Core Scientific do with regards to Bitcoin mining, that would be great.
So we consider ourselves part of the infrastructure. We have a large hosting facilities in 3 states. We actually do a lot of mining ourselves, and we host a lot for other folks. So I would like we're integrally part of the Bitcoin infrastructure.
Very cool. And what would you say makes Core Scientific competitive and unique in the industry right now?
So Core, we really strive to be a white glove service for those that want to invest in digital assets. So we target hedge funds, public traded companies, family offices, and we try to provide all the services needed from the beginning to the end. Ordering equipment, getting that equipment brought into the United States, getting it set up, getting the pool set up, getting wallets set up for folks, and just making it as easy as possible for people to get into the industry.
And how big is your operations right now? Because I know North America seems to be an up-and-coming location, but in Asia and in China, there seems to have been a large majority of miners.
So you are correct. Asia right now holds the largest percentage of the Bitcoin network itself. However, a new investment is happening right now in North America, particularly in the United States and Canada, because of the large infrastructure that we do have. At Core, we have a little over 380 megawatts of power that's ready now for mining, and for Bitcoin mining particularly. And we are able to expand that to 450 megawatts. Now, compared to all of China, that's tiny. But compared to any individual operator, we're large. We're easily one of the largest, if not the largest in North America, and I think we're on scale with any of the large miners in China. Again, the vast majority of Bitcoin mining in the past generation happened in China, but what we're seeing is a lot of movement into North America, and we're part of that trend.
Yeah, that's really interesting to see this shift. And I know that you have different locations throughout the states, strategically located. And for those people that aren't really familiar with Bitcoin mining, can you give a scope on, how big is 380 megawatts and how big are the facilities?
So, yeah. So our facilities right now, we have facilities in North Carolina, Georgia, and Kentucky. The actual part dedicated to cryptocurrency is, in a square footage wise, is 655,000 square feet. So some of the facilities are big enough to actually, drive cars in them or golf carts if you want to. So we're a large operator. And in terms of megawatts, a megawatt will provide the power for like a super Walmart. And you're talking about 380 megawatts now. So each of our centers, even our smallest centers, are 50 megawatts, which is enough to really provide power for a small city. So they're large. And we've done tours and stuff. And prior to COVID, we were pretty regular giving tours to clients and client guests. And most of the time it's jaw dropping whenever you're walking and you're measured your steps in miles. Whenever you do one of the visits, it's pretty impressive.
That's really cool. And with such large facilities, I'm sure you're using a lot of power. And there have been some other mining companies that have been looking at renewable energy sources or harnessing that power that's being used from the miners. Are you guys doing anything specifically to help lower your costs or to make more renewable energy?
So interesting enough, renewable energy is green for the environment, but it's also green for your wallet. Renewable energy is the cheapest energy you can find. When you have a fuel input cost of 0, that means your actual energy costs are lower. So for ourselves, we're better than 50% what we call carbon free. A lot of our power comes from hydro and solar and nuclear. We do have some that are coal, but for the most part, green energy is cheap energy. And in order to be efficient and be competitive globally with Asia, China specifically, and Russia, you have to have cheap, steady power, and you get that in renewable areas in the Southeast.
Very cool. And I know that Core is also a host. So from what I understand, you're mining in your own operations, but you're also having other people, mining on behalf of others. Is that right?
So yeah, so what we do is we're first, we're blockchain and AI. So we have a lot of blockchain hosting. We do also do a lot of AI hosting, which is your high compute GPUs. And I kind of misspoke because some of that megawatts is set aside for those high compute GPUs, and some of that megawatts is set aside for our rendering GPUs. But for the most part, we actually took on hosting clients in order to grow, in order to become a more efficient operator. So in order to make our own mining efficient, we decided to take on hosting clients, which makes us more efficient miners, but also we will provide a quality service to our customers.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And from what I understand, Bitmain is the main producer of Bitcoin miners, and you're working with Bitmain, and you've purchased so many mining rigs that are new because they do seem to create new versions and become more efficient pretty often. Can you talk about your recent relationship with Bitmain and where you're at with your miners?
Absolutely, yeah. So we actually operate with several different providers. Bitmain is the largest producer, and we just ordered nearly 18,000 of their newest generation S19 miners. We started getting them in test batches in May, and we've been deploying them throughout June and July, and we have some coming in August and September. And I'll tell you, we're very happy with the S19. It's a little tank. They're up 99.8%. I checked this morning. We had a few that had some issues, and they go down, they get back up very quick. So we're happy with that product. With that said, we also work with What's Miner, and we work with Cann. So we have Bitcoin mining equipment from all the major manufacturers, but definitely Bitmain is the largest by a factor. So, and
Mm-hmm.
we're happy with our production. The units that we bought from Bitmain came out of Malaysia,
Mm-hmm.
and production in Malaysia hasn't slowed down. There was, with the halving event that happened at the same time as COVID, there was some supply chain issues at the beginning of the year,
Mm-hmm.
and that really slowed down a lot of things between January and April. Really, January all the way through May, there was some supply chain disruptions around the world, not just in Bitcoin mining, but everywhere. And that did affect. It affected us. It affected Bitmain. It affected our plans for a rollout. But all that is slowly correcting itself as the world returns to normal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're a long way from normal, but you understand, 2020 is crazy. So.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting that you mentioned that. And I was going to touch on the fact that the Bitcoin halving reward, now miners only get half the reward they do normally get every 10 minutes. How did Core plan for that? I'm guessing you were in operations just back a few months when it was going. Is there any preparation or mindset, or I'm sure it may affect the price and that may affect your day-to-day cash flow in and cash flow out?
Affect everything, but we planned for it, and because it's an algorithm, we knew when it was going to happen. We knew within hours of when it was going to happen. In general, if COVID had not had the supply chain disruption that it had, what would have happened was, prior to the halving event, we would have started replacing or adding new generation miners. And we did add some throughout the fall and then into the spring, but because of supply chain issues, a lot of that old generation equipment stayed on through the halving. And oddly enough, old generation equipment is slightly profitable right now, based on the recent run up of Bitcoin price.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're seeing is new generation equipment is so much more efficient that as more new generation equipment comes online, it's going to increase the difficulty level for the Bitcoin algorithm, and that's going to drive out some of that old generation equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And particularly going to see with the Chinese rainy season ending, the power costs in China are going to start creeping back up again. So the older generation equipment in China is going to have to start going offline, which is also going to decrease the difficulty, which is going to increase mining profitability for new generation equipment.
Mm-hmm. Wow, it's such a complex equation on all of the variables, right? And with the recent increase in price of Bitcoin, last week it went up almost $1,000 in a day. I'm sure that the miners are happy about that. But at the same time, the difficulty would increase because people are seeing that they can get more for those Bitcoins. So does Core have a strategy or a plan in how they manage all of the Bitcoins that they mine in terms of, paying the expenses, but maybe keeping Bitcoin for when the price is way higher?
Yeah, so we do both. We mine for revenue to cover operating costs, and we also mine for our balance sheet, and we store things. So we do both. Mm-hmm. And we'll sell Bitcoin out into the open market, and we'll also have hash contracts, and there's different hedging and financial instruments available for those folks like ourselves that are long Bitcoin, because we are a natural long because we mine Bitcoin, and other currencies. So, we can use those coins for financial instruments as well. So
Mm-hmm.
we do all those things. And because we are a large operator, we have a lot of opportunities to do that. But even
Mm-hmm.
small operators and small miners can take advantage of those same tools that are out there.
Mm-hmm. And really part of the next step for the mainstream adoption of Bitcoin is getting more institutional interest and institutional investors. Have you seen a growth this year so far in the institutional interest for the Bitcoin mining side?
So Ashton, actually, it's like I planted that question with you. That's our target market: institutional investors, hedge funds, publicly traded companies, family offices. As the United States capital markets get more comfortable with digital assets, we're seeing more and more that those capital markets open up to digital assets, and that's what we target. We want to be there for those folks because it's easy when you just get started to build a few GPU rigs or have a few ASICs in your garage or even in a small operation. But if you are an institution, if you're a publicly traded company,
Mm-hmm.
there's certain balances and regulations and things you want to make sure you check all those boxes. For instance, we're audited annually by Ernst & Young. We're one of the
Mm-hmm.
few cryptocurrency businesses in the world audited by one of the big four audit firms. But we do that in order to provide the transparency
Mm-hmm.
that institutional investors and institutional operators require, really, if they're going to get into this space.
Definitely, it's good to have that. Well, it sounds like you guys are doing really well with the growth of your operations. My last question is, what comes next for Core in the next 6 months or a year? What are your strategic goals?
So our AI side of the business is really growing. And I mentioned that earlier when I told you about the number of megawatts. We actually have a tier 3 AI center built into our cryptocurrency operations, and that's going to continue to grow. There's a lot of, I think AI and blockchain are going to converge. AI is processing data, blockchain is securing and managing that data. And I think as we see that 2020 get somewhat back to normal, we're going to see a lot more growth on our AI side of the business. Also, as the supply chain in the ASIC world gets back to normal, we're going to see more growth, or we're going to see more movement into North America. And I do want to point out, I don't think anyone's going to close any of their operations in China or Asia.
Mm-hmm.
I just think new operations and new
Mm-hmm.
capital spend is going to find its way more into North America versus legacy operations. So I don't think any of those old things are going to close. I just think new money is going to come here
Mm-hmm.
to where we're.
That's great. And if there are institutional investors or others that are interested more in mining and Core Scientific, what's the best way for them to reach out and to get involved?
So, if you want to be a big operator, go to our website, corescientific.com, and we'll be glad to help you. But, really, even if you're just getting into the game and want to get a GPU and get it mining Ethereum or something, jump into
Mm-hmm.
it. That's how I got started, really just as a GPU miner, and then it's kind of grown into a much larger business. So cryptocurrency is a lot of fun, and you can do it as a small operator in your home, or you can dive into it in a big time way like us and have several 100,000 square feet of it. So
Mm-hmm.
I encourage people to get involved, even if it's just on a trading account on one of the Robinhood or somewhere like that.
Mm-hmm.
But for us, go to corescientific.com and we'll be glad to help you out.
Great. Thank you so much, Russell. I will leave the links in the description box below. All the best moving forward with Core Scientific, and let's follow up in the near future.
All right. Thanks, Ashton. Appreciate it tonight.